Hello and welcome to the Mercenary Star podcast. My name is Seth, also known as White Fox SG, and we are excited to have a brand new episode for you here at the end of 2023. We are in episode 11, and we are covering the Waco Rangers. I am very pleased to have my special guest with me today, Woody, aka Goodshot Jansen, from MWO Game Nights. And if you don't know what that is, you should really check it out because we have an awesome group of people playing MWO on Friday nights most times. And I think last time we had upwards of, 8 to 10 people playing some custom matches. So it's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you there. We play in the Valhalla Club Discord, of which we have a booth in their Discord, and so we'd love to have you join us there as well. But first of all, we need to get to know our co-host here. Woody, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Seth. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah.
To people listening, I want to go ahead and apologize. I've come down with some sort of curmudgeon, so a
All
lot of
good.
mouth breathing and sniffling coming from me. But I'll try to mute out as much of it as possible. But it's great to be here, man.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for offering to cover this tragic anti-hero. I don't know if I'd even get that much, but this
They're
tragic
fantastic. Yeah,
tale.
they're great.
Somebody's got to like them, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to cover the Waco Rangers. But first, how long have you been playing Battletech or MechWarrior, or how'd you get into the universe, and how long?
Uh, yeah, tabletop. Honestly, relatively recently. A buddy of mine and I were playing MechWarrior 5 together, and just decided we wanted to try out the tabletop game. But my love affair with the universe started like a lot of people my age. I was in, I guess, junior high at the time, and Mech Assault came out for the Xbox, and I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
oh, this is a cool game. Let's drive big robots. And I took my Xbox with me to college, and my buddy's roommate walked in. He's like, that looks like, is that a cougar? I was like, yeah, it's a cougar. You play Mech Assault? He's like, no, dude, I play Mech Warrior 4. He's like, come with me. Just come with me right now. so, so
Nice.
we went back to his, yeah, went back to his room, and he booted up Mech Warrior 4, and I was like, oh my god, this is how this is supposed to be. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's I love that you came from Mech Assault. Like, I love Mech Assault. I think they were super fun. Had it on the original Xbox. I was in college at the time, but
Uh-huh.
um, it was like the first time. I grew up playing the MechWarrior games from MechWarrior 1 on.
Right.
But yeah, it was also fun to sit down with a controller in front of the TV and casually play, MechWarrior
I came
through
from
Mech Assault. So
I came from a console household, so we never had PC.
yeah,
So that was the only way I was able to get into the whole MechWarrior thing, and I ended up getting a used PC to play MechWarrior, just to play MechWarrior 4 on. But
that's awesome.
yeah, it's going back after playing MechWarrior is kind of hard just because it's so arcadey, but it's a great entry point for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you do know a bit about enough about the lore. Did you get into the books as well?
Yeah, so the same friend of mine who told me about MechWarrior 4, he's like, and there's books, right? I'm like, no, you're kidding me. So at the time, I happened to be working at a when I was in college, I was working at a bookstore called Books a Million, and
Oh yeah,
I went
totally.
and I saw, yeah. I'm not sure if they're still around. I doubt they are, but I went
I
on
don't
the
know.
shelf and I was looking for Mech Warrior books. And I was like, Mech Warrior Dark Age Book One. Okay, this must be the first book. Great. Um,
Oof, oof.
well,
Everyone on the internet
it
just
was
cringed.
it's a Stackpole book, and I knew Stackpole from the X-Wing series, and it's not a bad book. It's more of like an espionage thriller, which I thought was kind of cool. I went
Yeah.
back and told Drew, I was like, "Hey man, dude, I just finished this book. It's called Ghost War. It's pretty good." And he looked at me again. He's like, "Dude, no." Like I was, because I remember distinctly telling him like, "There's this big battle. There were like 4 battle mechs. It was huge." He's like, oh my goodness, man. Like you understand that like earlier in the timeline there are battles covering entire continents. I was like, no. He's like, okay, here, you need to go read this. And then I stopped reading those for a while. I don't know why. But around the same time I started getting back into tabletop, I just started at the beginning, and I've been reading every single book, and now I'm ironically, back into the Dark Age era.
Yeah.
And I'm understanding when people say when they say the timeline stops at 67, but at the same time, the Dark Age books aren't bad. You're just gonna have an open mind.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more of the books at the beginning of the Dark Age when we were going through them, when we were going through it at the time, we did not like, I've heard interviews and stuff where people are like, oh no, like some of these books were like almost like disinformation. Like nobody knew what was going on. I was like, I get that, but the reader should have known what was going on.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's
that
really
this
more of where
80
it was
time
because
jump.
a time jump, and we basically lost track of all of the things that we were familiar with. And so that was
I
where
had
the
the exact
disconnect
same
happened. So,
the exact same thing happened to me. And like I unfortunately I could see like the train wreck coming in the distance as I kept
mhm.
reading the books. I was like, okay, we're in the FedCom Civil War. It's 62, 63, 64, 65. And it's like, okay, this is Endgame. This is the last one. You better enjoy it, buddy. And when I
Yeah,
finished and read the next one, it's like, okay, so what happened to Paul Masters and the Knights of the Inner Sphere? What happened to like
right.
all these characters I was really
What happened
interested
to
in? And
Victor? What happened to Hohiro? Like,
yeah,
what happened to all these characters? Yeah, totally.
are we ever going to figure out who killed Morgan Hassock Davion? Like they just never come back to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Um, I know, and that was, and I get there was also some real world things that happened in that,
sure,
but
sure,
still,
yeah,
they tried to basically move forward and create their own story, which was
yeah,
kind of the wrong thing to do with this universe and this fandom.
yeah.
Um, and they
Well, it's
also were
also
trying
kind
to
of a
sell those
bad.
clicks. So
It's bad timing on their part that they came out with a storyline called the Jihad like 2 years before 9/11. So that's just bad
yeah,
time.
yeah, that wasn't good.
Bad
So
timing.
yeah, I don't even like to call it that. Pretty much, I just call it like the Word of Blake Crusade, whatever you want to call it, kind of thing. So,
The
um,
J word.
the J word, yeah. Um, well, and it doesn't do well on the internet anymore now either. So like you
Yeah.
get you flagged on those YouTube videos sometimes, but all good. So we're gonna talk about the Waco Rangers,
Yeah,
and
it's a unit that did not make it to
they
the
did not.
they ended with the with most people's timelines.
They did end with most people's timelines, but it wasn't because they were a fan favorite. Because they were
No,
definitely
no.
not a fan favorite. There are some people who love Waco Rangers.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourselves among them?
I love what they are, and I love who they are. I'm definitely not somebody who goes out and stomps out a lance and proud Waco Rangers colors or has a
Sure.
Waco Rangers decal in the back of my truck. Like, no, I wouldn't say I'm a supporter or fan, but you've got to have factions like this. You can't have every
Absolutely.
faction like being an honorable mercenary company doing good. It's like that's not how the world works, man.
Yeah,
You gotta have shades of gray out there. This company is definitely one of those darker shades of gray that makes the world more interesting and flavorful.
absolutely. So let's just get into it. They were
Let's dive right in,
founded.
man.
They were founded in 3007,
Yes.
which is very similar in timeline to what we'll find out later. Their arch nemesis, the Wolf Dragoons.
Just appearing out of nowhere with Danny's
Yes,
inheritance next.
yes. But they were founded in 3007 when
Yep.
Wayne Waco, who was a part of the first Tau Ceti Rangers,
Yes.
when they disbanded and he left and started the
Uh,
Waco Rangers. So I get where the
so we
Rangers
know,
part came from. Basically he was part of the Tau
right.
Ceti Rangers. Let's keep the name Rangers. He's just going to be the Waco Rangers, which is
Okay, so on
cool.
that, I was going to ask you, Seth. I've been kicking this question around for a while. Do you think Wayne Waco? Do you think he picked up that name because of the Rangers moniker, or do you think that he just loves Texas, or do you think this is actually his name?
I don't know. I mean, like the Waco part, I think was his name. Like
Yeah.
Waco because the reason because Waco back in the 80s when
Uh,
this unit was born, in our timeline in our world, Waco was not a big town that people knew about. Like people didn't know about Waco.
I,
you
it's
know.
still a pretty small town. I got a buddy who's from
Yeah,
Waco.
yeah. But it wasn't
But
even
I'm
infamous for some of the other things we know in
oh
in
no,
the news,
I wasn't even trying to draw a parallel to that.
No, no, I'm just saying like
I'm just
nobody knew
wondering.
about that, Nobody knew about Waco
Right,
as a
right,
town. So I think it's just his
yeah,
name. I think the
yeah.
W is an alliteration that works well, Wayne Waco. Also,
He
I
just
think if they
leaned
were
hard into the Texas stuff.
he did, and that's okay. That's okay. I do appreciate we'll show some art. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching the VOD, we'll have a
Yeah,
presentation in just a little bit. In fact, you know what? We're talking about stuff now. Let's go ahead and pull that up. What am I doing?
yeah. These uniforms are great.
We'll get to their uniforms and stuff, and man, they're fantastic. But it's not purely Texas. It's almost like a cross between like Texas and like Australian outback.
Yeah, it's almost like African big game hunter. Some of these hats and
It
stuff. I
is.
see
It
that.
is like the
Yeah, yeah,
safari, like the old British safari
yeah,
hats. Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so we'll get into that here in a minute, and we'll show the title slide on the presentation there. And yeah, so they look fantastic. They look rough and tumble. They look, you know, like I said, kind of like yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so another thing too, and this is something that was really hard. They're an important unit in the Battletech universe, but they're in my research, and I'm sure in yours too. There's not a lot of artwork. In fact, I'll make it. There's like almost none. And then there's
Yep.
hardly any fiction. There's more fiction than artwork, but it's all short stories. And so there's not
Right.
like a novel cover with, Waco Rangers mech on the front of it or anything. There's not anything really out there. Um I know like there will probably be more in the next year. I know some other YouTubers have commissioned some art, and I think that's awesome. I actually am probably going to be doing the same moving into 2024 with the units that I cover, because I feel like some of these smaller units that are important to the Battletech universe should have at least one piece of good art,
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, that's going to be fun. But for now, we have the picture that you see on screen, which is from the Mercenary Handbook. And then we've got pretty much the uniforms that it's also from the Mercenary Handbook that we'll show in just a little bit. But
Yep.
like we talked about, they were founded in 3007. Wayne Waco, he was a Vindicator pilot, which I find interesting, especially because we have the Vindicator as part of the new beginner box. And so, I think the new sculpt looks good. And so I might make an argument for that as a mech in the box set later. But
For sure.
yeah,
There's plenty of variants out there you can choose from.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. And then what are the source books besides Mercenaries Handbook that they've been included in?
They do play a big role if you want to read about the kind of the genesis of this conflict between the Dragoons and the Rangers that we'll talk about in a second. The Wolf's Dragoon source book has it in there, and then they're mentioned briefly in the Cranston and Rondesnord's source books.
Which are closely
And
tied to the Wolf Dragoons as well.
correct. They are, and because I think there's some point where Cranston figures out what's going on between the irregulars and the Dragoons, and so his blood umbrella blood feud
Yeah.
expands to cover them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, there's a few source books there, but I mean, if you want to learn about kind of the genesis of them and what's going on with the Dragoon source book, and it's one of the cheaper ones you can get if you're looking for a physical copy. Some of these source books are expensive now.
Right. Out of print and all that.
Yeah, exactly. That's hopefully we can get those back in print with all the glorious 1980s artwork.
From what I've heard, a lot of stuff is going to come back around as print on demand. It's just going to take time before they come around. And some of them may not, I don't know, but Wolf Dragoons are pretty prominent, so I imagine we may see something with them. It's a refresh version of some kind.
Cool.
But yeah, so there's that. I think their first appearance in fiction was in the Wolf Dragoons novel Wolfpack, which was in 92, I believe. I thought I had that written down here somewhere, but yeah, I think that was their first appearance in fiction, and but they didn't have any of their own fiction until 2012. And so, like, getting into that, yeah, Wolfpack was 1992, and like I said, I think they were just mentioned.
Yeah.
But their first, well, hold on, let's see, what else was it? They were also in. They also played a major role in Malicious Intent, which was a Michael Stackpole novel about the Refusal War and the Jade Falcon's assault on Coventry, which is a major battle that they were involved in.
Yeah, and I think we'll detail that later on, because that's for many reasons, not just the results and the effects felt throughout the Inner but there. I'll wait till we get there. I don't want to throw spoilers in here before we start talking about these guys.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of where those are the first two novels that really mention them, and Malicious Intent mentioned them more than Wolfpack, I'm pretty sure. But what's really cool is that we actually get some fiction from the viewpoint of the Rangers later. And so, again, if you're watching the screen, we've got Making a Name, which was a Battlecorp short story in the Weapons Free anthology by Jason Schmetzer. Jason Schmetzer in 2012. Sorry, Jason. And so that one actually follows the story of Wayne Waco's son, John, getting killed when he got stepped on. Spoilers, by the way, if you didn't know. But these are 30-year-old novels, and but yeah, basically Wayne Waco's son, in their first major engagement was against the Welsh Dragoons. He got shot out of his locus, running across the battlefield or something. He basically got stepped on by a Dragoon assault mech and killed. And so that is what started the Dragoon Death Oath, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But that's what started the feud, even though I think it was all parties were cleared of like maliciously trying to kill him. What I do want to ask, though, is why in the world is the son of the commander of the mercenary company in a locus?
That's I think it's we can speculate it. It might have just been the mech the author chose, but if there is a story reason, it shows a silent lack of favoritism.
Well,
hey,
I
boy,
guess
I'm
that's
not
true.
going to give you. I'm not just going to give
true.
you a mech you haven't earned, or maybe he was a hotshot scout pilot. Man, you never know.
Maybe so. I mean, it didn't seem like he was that hot shot. He got shot out of it pretty fast in that battle. So
yeah.
But yeah, so then we've got Tales from the Cracked Canopy, Blind Arrogance, which was in the first issue of Shrapnel and was written by Craig A. Reed Jr. That was in 2020. And it is from the perspective of a former Ranger who basically left and then was telling his story of why he left, because essentially he knew what the rest of us knew, is that Wayne Waco was crazy and he wanted to get out of there. So, but that's in the first issue of Shrapnel. The other two entries are, again, Shrapnel entries. In Shrapnel number 5, we've got Ice Cold Dish, which was by Paul Jardine in 2021. And then, and that one is actually, the last hurrah of the Waco Rangers. It is the battle on Outreach in 3067, whenever Wayne Waco, with the backing of the Word of Blake, hires a whole bunch of, you know, less than stellar reputation mercenaries to rebel, and something between 200 and 300 mechs, I think is what they said, was the whole coalition that they got together. And then he basically led them all to destruction. So, because they were wiped out in said battle. And that was when they were disbanded / destroyed. The Rangers did not live past 3067. And then we got one more entry of the Waco Rangers, and it's only kind of the Waco Rangers. Essentially, it's a young foot soldier getting called Signing Day, and it's in Shrapnel 11 by Chris G. Lane. And it's the story of him, this young soldier, basically getting signing up with the Waco Rangers. So pretty all good stories, all well written. But again, it's just kind of that tragic, mercenary company that could never quite get it right, that had, their leaders were just a little bit unhinged.
Yeah, and even at their apex, they were never quite like even a B tier unit. Like they never quite got into the major leagues. There are a couple of points there where it's like they could almost just reach out their hands and touch it, and then they just never made it. And a lot of that was
Yeah.
due to Wayne Waco's emotional um, instability.
Yeah, absolutely. And he also, even though he ended up giving up command of them for a little while, which was happened before the Battle of Coventry, he never released ownership, so he could basically come back in and take over.
Right.
And also too, anyone, like what we talked about earlier, anyone that signed up basically had to agree to the Wolf Dragoons' death oath, which was that any dragoons that they found, they tried to kill, essentially. And then on top of that, like you said, when they found out there was a connection between the Snords Irregulars, they kind of added them to it as well a little bit. But they even had a clause in all of their contracts that if the Great House or whoever they were hired by were going to hire the Wolf Dragoons, they were required to inform the Waco Rangers, and that was an exit clause that they could basically leave their contract if it was basically them or the Rangers. And clearly everyone eventually chose the Dragoons. So yeah, but yeah, getting into kind of more of their summary. Talked about Wayne Waco starting it. They fought the Wolf Dragoons on New Coventry, their first engagement. But go ahead, yeah.
To the founding real quick. We know that his wife came with him.
Yes.
And so ostensibly other people from the Taos City Rangers came with Wayne, and there's a precedent in history for this happening. I guess the most recent example of something like this would be in South Africa during the or after the border war with Angola. There was a battalion-sized element called the 32nd Reconnaissance Battalion, and they were disbanded. And the higher ups from that battalion ended up forming with a lot of the veterans a unit called Executive Outcomes, which was a actual real life PMC mercenary outfit in the 90s. They
Nice.
they went to jail later on for trying to overthrow a government in sub-Saharan Africa. But it's an interesting parallel where you do have things happening in real life where these entire units they're unemployed, and so the guys in charge guys, hold on a second, don't go turn in your gear yet, stick around, let's we can make something out of this.
Yeah. It's definitely something that is believable, right? And we see it all the time in the Battletech universe where Unit A gets disbanded or destroyed, and then out of the ashes, somebody creates a mercenary company. Or we see an entire unit, maybe, that leaves the service of a greater house military and forms a unit because they don't believe in what the government that they have been serving, they don't believe in what they're doing. So
Or like in the case of the Light Horse and the Highlanders, the government you're serving just ends up disappearing out from underneath you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of precedents in BattleTech for that. I
Yeah.
mean, in fact, we're kind of going through that again, and I'm super excited for more Ill Clan fiction because again, it kind of coincides with the Mercenaries Kickstarter in that we are getting an influx of mercenaries because the Republic of the Sphere is no more. Spoilers. Spoiler alert.
I'm actually I'm in the middle of those books right now, so
I mean,
which have
but we kind
20-year-old
of had
books.
to, if you've heard anything about the BattleTech universe,
Oh
it's
no, yeah,
called Ill Clan, meaning
it's
that
impossible
a
to avoid
clan,
spoilers at this point.
meaning a clan has taken over
Yeah,
Terra,
yeah,
and the along with that, the Republic of the Sphere is no more, and so
yeah,
there are a bunch of Republic former military that are forming mercenary companies. They're like everyone is trying to hire mercenary companies. Also, too, we talked about those dark ages. There in those dark ages, there was this whole like de-armament that happened that was led by Devlin Stone and the Republic of the Sphere, and it was very cheesy peacetime kind of like turning mechs into plowshares. Let's be pioneers once again. And, pretty much everyone kind of agreed to it, except for I think like the Capellan Confederation. I don't think they agreed to it at all. But everyone else kind of agreed to it. They kind of hid mechs and armaments, here and there. Different units did, different worlds did. But there was not as many mercenaries anymore. And so we're seeing a big rise in that in the current timeline, and I love it. So,
yeah. That's I feel like the 3000 through like the fourth succession era war all the way through clan invasion and afterwards. This is like the golden age of the mercenary that we're in right now.
yeah,
That we're talking about, like the early 3000s, and if it comes back, that's great. The
yes,
Republic of the Spear stuff has me actually rooting for the Capellan Confederation. I don't like the Republic.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, they were destroyed by not by the Capellan Confederation per se, but there's I don't know, there's some interesting stuff coming. Okay, so obviously they were founded, and we talked earlier. John Waco, Wayne's son, was killed, and that started the infamous Waco death oath.
Yes. So
And
I've got another question for you,
yeah,
Seth. You're on the ground, right? You've just ejected from your locust, and you see a stalker lumbering towards you. I feel like this is like Luke Skywalker in the snowspeeder, and the AT-AT is
yes,
walking at
yes,
like half a mile an hour, and he's like trying
absolutely.
to pull Dak out the back of the snowspeeder, and he keeps looking back, and like every time he looks, like it's inexplicably like a half mile closer than it was before.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's also like that Austin Powers thing where the stop
Yes.
the
The
steamroller's coming. Like,
steamroller is coming, and
yeah,
he's like,
how does this happen?
no. I
How do you get
know,
crushed by a
right?
stalker?
I mean, it's been a long time since I've read that 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 fiction entry for it. So there's a good reason. I can't remember, but so many
I don't know.
questions, right? So many
It just yeah,
questions.
the image makes me laugh every time I think about it.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was like an important piece of the Waco Rangers identity, though. They hated the Wolf Dragoons, which were arguably the best and the favorite mercenary unit of a lot of people
Definitely best
for a long
equipped.
time. Oh, well,
Yeah,
100% best equipped because they came in
yeah,
with outdated, mechs that were actually well advanced
right,
over the
right.
current mechs in 3025 and 3007 because of all the succession wars. In fact, they had to mothball half of those mechs that they brought with them because they were like, "Oh, we're way too overpowered for these people."
Yeah, dude, they had warships.
Yeah, as a mercenary unit and 5
Yeah,
regiments.
we're just gonna go like stockpile these over here. Don't don't
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
um, but the Waco Rangers though they did have a decent enough reputation as a competent unit that they worked
Yeah,
for almost everyone.
Okay.
In fact, I think they worked for all the major houses at one point or another. Now, granted, they had that clause
Yeah.
that if the Wolf Dragoons were hired by the same, faction, that they could pull
Right.
out, and they did. They never wanted to be
Right.
employed by them because they always wanted to be against them.
Right.
And so I feel like it was usually like, oh, they're getting hired by House Karita. Let's go work for the
Yeah.
Lyran Commonwealth so that we can fight against them, kind of thing.
Right.
So
Yeah. Seeking out employment opposite of their
yes,
dragoons. I think the only people who didn't give them the head notice was the Capcom, but I think that's because the blood feud started midway through the contract, so it wasn't in the contract yet.
yes, it exactly. So, but yeah, they did that in, that's all throughout the early 3000s.
Mhm.
The Draconis Combine did actually give them notice, and so they left.
Yeah.
And that's when they moved to the LCAF. Let's see. Kind of, we talked earlier about them finding out about Snords Irregulars in the 3031, 3032 time
Yeah.
period. And they actually were trying to, because when we talked about the Snords Irregulars in a previous episode, talked about how they were like treasure seekers, right? And so Wayne Waco thought, oh, let's go steal the treasure from him. And he tried to challenge them and end up losing because he thought it was just going to be a small part of the Irregulars, and it was like the entire force of the Regulars that he ended up fighting against.
Yeah, and it was over like it's like crystal goblets and stuff, right? Like it's like
Yes.
like a set of like
Priceless heirlooms, but nothing that was actually
priceless
valuable,
heirlooms.
like
Right.
to someone like Wayne Waco.
Right.
Yeah, so it was, and the Snords Regulars just like outmaneuvered them, used tactics better than they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a pretty bad beat.
Afterwards was like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you're not even worth my time to kill. Like I'm out of here. Like
he
didn't
taunted him.
Like, you were an equal. It's like no. He's just like you're not worth the AC-20 round, dude. This is like a 5,000 C-bill shell.
He definitely solidified the fact that it was like, yeah, you're you can be mad at us too because we don't care about you.
You know what it is? Have you seen? Did you ever see Mad Men?
Only a few episodes.
Okay, hopefully some of the viewers will know what I'm talking about. There's this scene in the elevator. There's a new guy. He's talking to Don Draper, the John Hamm's character. He's like, I think you're this, that. I think you're this. And John Hamm looks at me and goes, I don't think about you at all. And that's
pretty much.
That's kind of how I feel the Jamie Wolf and Krasis Nord feel about the Waco Rangers. Like, we just don't think about you, man. You're a fly. Like, you're not within our sphere. We don't care about you. And that makes his blood boil. That makes Wayne Waco's blood just absolutely boil.
Oh, he goes crazy. He definitely goes crazy. But then at some point after that, before the clan invasion, he actually gives up command of the Waco Rangers, and he gives it over to Colonel Wayne Rogers. And so during the clan invasion, Wayne Rogers is actually the commander of the Waco Rangers. And although it was pretty funny because even though he was retired from being commander of Waco Rangers, he was still heavily involved in intersphere politics somehow. And when everyone found out that again, spoilers, if you haven't read the Blood of Kerensky trilogy, Wayne Waco basically tries, when we find out that the Wolf Dragoons are the Wolf Dragoons from Clan Wolf, he's like, oh, we should everybody get them, they're from the clans, and everyone's like, nah.
Honestly, one of the less insane things he's ever said. Like,
true.
He's not wrong.
No, except for the fact that he didn't read the room. He was pretty much just
right.
Let's all get him. We should take him out, even though we're like all here on outreach, like
right.
In their backyard, their sovereign planet.
Like, yeah, we're not gonna fight, but you guys can have a hot dog if you want. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're in our house, man. You're not
Oh
gonna
my
fight us here.
gosh. Yeah. Again, just not quite all there. But yeah, so I mean, but again, like you said, it was kind of like the most sane thing for him to say. But then also he did, however, in the preceding years, serve on the MRBC, the Mech Warrior, the Mercenary Review and Bonding Commission board,
Right.
and he was always looking for a way to stick it to the Wolf Dragoons, and he did find a way in a very brief stint to say, "Oh, Jamie Wolf, you can't serve in any active contracts for like a year,"
Yeah.
which is
And it's
like,
so
okay,
interesting that
fine,
they
I'll
let
turn
him.
it over to this guy, and the Dragoons will still go do it.
I think it does speak to Jamie Wolf's character a bit for even letting him on, because the MRBC was the follow up to the MRB, the Comstar's Mercenary Review Board, after Terra fell. Um,
Yes.
so the MRBC is on Outreach, which is the Wolf Dragoon planet, and here you've got the sworn enemy to Jamie Wolf, who's serving on this bonding commission on Outreach. It is passing judgment against Dragoon members, and I think we both know that Jamie Wolf did not have to show up to that, did not have to abide by that judgment. But um, it
He
is
still
a
did, though. He still did.
exactly. He shows that he's not above the judgment set up by his own organization. I think that's I can imagine that drove Waco
Oh
even
man.
crazier, where it's like, we've got it this time. And it's like popular opinion surges for Jamie Wolf after
Yeah.
he abides by MRBC.
Yeah.
You can just see him
Right?
pulling his hair out.
Oh my gosh, it's just funny. Um, but yeah, so then we get to the Battle of Coventry, which was in 3058. So after the, um, you know, this is after Tukid. We've got the Tukid truce line, but the Jade Falcons they still have room to work, still have room to try to like take over things in the Lyran Commonwealth, because they basically just made it like
Right.
a parallel line in the race to Terra once they found
Well,
out.
this is after the refusal war. So the Falcons at
Yes.
this point are their ranks have been decimated, not in the actual sense of the word. Like they're about maybe 10% of all their forces are gone.
Yeah.
And they have to actually bring up um, IASs and not recruits, but Simcoe
Yep.
members up before their time's necessarily ready. And Martha Pride is like, okay, well, they need a trial of combat. We're going to have combat. Let's just throw them out there. The ones that survive will make the clan stronger. The ones that don't, sink or
Yeah.
swim. Um, but there is some merit to her thinking. At the same time, she left her rear completely exposed, and this is one of those things in one of the few points in BattleTech that I think was written poorly, having the wolves come back like that. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole point of this for Martha Pride was this entire military operation was a lot like the German Condor legions in the Spanish Civil War, where the Germans sent their new planes and new pilots into Spain to develop tactics for modern warfare and to get combat experience and a leg up. So they've got a new generation of clan warriors coming up from the Simcoes,
Yeah.
and they need them to get combat experience quickly before the time runs out for the truce, the 15-year period. This is about halfway through that, a little bit less than halfway through that.
Yeah.
So the whole point of this was just combat for combat's sake for Martha Pride.
And this is not a Clan Jade Falcon episode, but I'm pretty sure that was also when included Aiden Pride's daughter, right?
Yeah, Diana.
She was Diana. She was
Diana.
involved in
Yeah,
Coventry as well. So, which I always liked her story, because
yeah,
anytime there's like a hotshot free birth, freeborn warrior in the clans that can
yeah,
rise and actually do something is pretty impressive. And she was allowed to do
yeah.
that, which not a lot in Jade Falcons were, but
Well, the little trio of her and Horse and Joanna just makes me smile whenever I read like one of the books centered
yeah,
around them. It's like the unlikely family dynamic that they have.
yeah, for sure. Uh, but on Coventry, the
Yes.
Waco Rangers, because there was a huge mercenary force there, part of them being the Kellhounds and the Wolf Dragoons,
Mhm.
and the Wolf, don't want to play nice with the Wolf Dragoons, but it wasn't Wayne Waco on site. It was Wayne Rogers.
Wayne Rogers,
But he still was trying to kind of honor the death oath, and so he ignored intel, like just flat out ignored it, and decided to go in his own direction, and very nearly ended the Rangers then. They pretty much were brought down to less than a company size of fighting units. And Wayne was also captured, I think, by the clans at the time too.
Yep.
And so then Wayne Waco came back and took over at that point. But they never recovered from that. They never recovered from Coventry as far as being able to be called a competent unit, probably because like until that time, they were still, lower end of B tier mercenaries, honestly.
Yep. And still not bad.
No, and they had like, they had almost not quite a regiment of units, like combined arms stuff, but they had a lot.
At their height, they had a couple drop ships. They had I don't think they ever had a jump ship. They did have a couple drop ships, like Steroid. I think they had at least one Overlord. But they're at the point where they're a self-sustained unit with the exception of jump ship capability. Which is that's a lot further than a lot of units ever get.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but here they lose it all.
Yeah. So obviously after that, they didn't really ever recover. Wayne Waco resumed command despite his advanced age, because I mean he was like almost 100 when he died, so he's got to be at this point probably like 85, 90.
Yeah, this is the point in the books when the original cast of characters, if you will, most of them are gone, but there's only a few left. Morgan Kell's still around.
Yep.
Jamie Wolf. Is Takashi Kurita still alive at this point?
No. He's been dead for a while because he's died. Been dead. He died, and Theodore had taken over the coordinatorship of the Draconis Combine. And yeah, there's obviously Victor and his sister had already had their civil war, and so then you had at that point by 3067 at the end, the Civil War had already happened. We had Victor had already stepped down and given it to Yvonne and
Peter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was something that was that was just interesting. Like you said, all the original cast and even some of their offspring had already been gone.
The next generation, a lot of those guys are getting up in age too.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, this
is where sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they definitely never really recovered, and were a company worth of battle mechs and a lance of aerospace fighters was all they had left.
Yeah.
So
and they're kind of, this is how I envision them. They're kind of like basically beggars on the streets of and on outreach.
Yes.
They're like sitting there like we'll fight for food.
Yes, and they're also really mad that they are stuck on outreach because it's the Wolf Dragoons' homeworld.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they are constantly biting the hand that feeds them.
Yeah, it's insult to injury, and no one's hiring them. They're stuck on this world. They can't go off. They can't apply their trade. And then this is when the J word happens or begins.
Yes,
really. And
the word of Blake starts becoming relevant.
Yeah, you can see the spark in good old Wayne Waco's eyes. He's like, "Huh,
a bunch of crazy people.
Excellent.
These crazy people want to take out the Wolf Dragoons too. Perfect.
Yeah, we should have a chat with these guys."
Oh my gosh. So he essentially takes money and equipment from the Word of Blake in 3067 hires a whole bunch of privately hires like a whole bunch of like smaller and independent mercenary companies and
Right.
units that are, also kind of the dregs of the mercenary, society,
Right.
and spring an attack on outreach on the mercenary allied command, which were part of the reason the Word of Blake basically hired them was so that they could go and disrupt this allied mercenary command, because Jamie
Right.
Wolf and the Wolf Dragoons were like, we need to take care of these Word of Blake people because they're getting crazy.
Yeah. And I
So,
love what was their liaison's name? I don't think I wrote it down in the
ooh, I
notes.
don't remember. I don't remember that.
Um, it was their Word of Blake liaison. It was basically like, all right, so here's your money and mechs. Yeah, don't worry, all the stuff is clean, and we're going to attack on Thursday. And Wayne was like, we attack tonight. It's like, no,
Exactly.
we have to wait till Thursday. He goes, no, no. He ends up shooting the. He shoots the aid and then just launches the attack. And to his
Oh
credit,
my
it
gosh.
completely got the dragoons off kilter. But
Yeah, it
the
did.
word of Blake was like, yeah, we this guy's an absolute loose cannon. Like, he's a bomb that we've set off, and hopefully he'll do damage to the dragoons. But we're washing our hands of this. Do what you will, man. We're stepping back.
Oh my gosh. It was, yeah, that was, yeah. And your impersonation was spot on and fantastic, by the way. I appreciate that.
We go now.
We go now. 100%.
Do it live.
100%. Do it live.
We'll do it live.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, I mean, they launch an attack on the Wolf Dragoons, on the Allied Mercenary Command, and they do a lot of damage, and the Dragoons are caught off guard, but at the same time they're the Wolf Dragoons, and so they
Yeah.
eventually, them and the other mercenary units start mopping up this rebellion. It ends
Oh,
up
sure.
coming down to Wayne Waco and his command Lance, I think, at that point. He didn't even have much left. Which a lot of those
It's the
other
command lance because
mercenaries,
it's the only lance.
it's the only Lance he has. All the rest were just the hirelings,
It's
which
the
is
de facto
funny.
command lance.
Which is funny because the Waco, all those like 200 to 300 mechs that
Yeah.
joined him, they all painted like the Waco Rangers star on their mechs,
Oh
but
yeah.
they call themselves the Waco
Like
Renegade
renegades.
Rangers.
Yeah, and I can imagine these guys are like either brand new mech warriors or they really never had the chops to get into a good organization,
Yeah,
and they're all kind of like Wayne. They're sitting around outreach. And they're just like, "Hey,
these
man,
are the
today's
C, D, and F tier
yes, but today's my
mercenaries.
big break.
Hmm.
Today I'm going to make it happen." Just like those actors who got the Hollywood wait tables for 50 years. They're like, "Man, tomorrow's going to be my big break." And for
Yeah,
these guys, it was Wayne Waco. He appears in darkens their doorway, and he's like, "Hey, kid, you want to drive a mech?"
yeah.
And so you get all
I
these
got a
guys
mech
who have
for
this
you
resentment
and
toward
some
the
money.
Dragoons.
You may not be alive at the
Yeah.
end of the day, but here's both.
And I imagine these guys have some past resentment to the Dragoons, either for saying they weren't good enough, for not letting them in the training hall, for not
Absolutely.
hiring them, or maybe they've lost family because the Wolf Dragoons have killed a lot of people on a lot of planets.
Well, sure, when you
Um,
get hired by every major faction and some of the minor ones too,
yeah,
stuff's going to
exactly.
happen.
They've killed their way across the entire inner sphere. But yeah, there's definitely that point where the initial onslaught happens, just sheer numbers of C, D tier mech warriors put the Wolf Dragoons back on their back foot. And then you have this like one little operator deep in the castle, and she's like, all Dragoons condition feral, all Dragoons condition feral. And then you have
Yes.
like the scene like in the Three
Oh my
Musketeers where like
gosh.
they're sitting in their barn and
Yes.
like push away the hay bale, and it's like their
Yeah, the Disney
jumpsuits there.
Musketeers movie where they're all like all the dragoons come out of the woodworks, and they
Yeah, exactly,
literally,
exactly.
and what's kind of crazy, but also completely understandable, is that they have this condition feral that's like,
Huh?
all right, we're killing everybody on the planet that's not a dragoon. Like
Yeah,
like straight
yeah,
up, they're like, we are destroying them. Like they are no longer allowed. Uh, you know, and so yeah, it's crazy. They completely wipe out these 200 to 300 mechs and mech warriors, and it ends up being, Jamie Wolf versus Wayne Waco, geriatric 99-year-old Wayne Waco in his Battlemaster, and against Jamie Wolf and his Archer. And somehow he manages to fatally wound Jamie Wolf. He doesn't quite kill him outright, but he fatally wounds him. Jamie Wolf kills him. And so Wayne Waco is no more. That's the end of it. And that's when they call the condition and basically rid the planet, purge the planet of with extreme prejudice is what it says. So they were destroyed, and thus ends the Waco Rangers in 3067.
I think it's interesting that Waco never knew he was fighting Jamie Wolf in the last battle. It's one of those things.
Really, the blue archer didn't give it away.
I remember reading that they didn't know they were fighting each other. Or maybe it might have been the implication might have been he didn't know he'd killed Jamie because he was also dead. That might have been the implication as well.
Well, that's
that's kind of a given. But I guess to show, man, don't ignore that little sore on your foot or that that little lesion you've got, because that could turn out to be the cancer that wipes you out from the inside, just like Wayne Waco did.
But like you said, it's this kind of like tragic, antagonist story, because they just never rose to their potential. They could have been, had they gotten past that death oath. They probably could have risen to much greater potential.
Oh, easily. Especially think about the clan invasion for the Inner Sphere was like the invasion of Iraq for private military companies in the U.S., where it's like you've got this field day. Government is throwing money at you to do whatever to fill needs. The clan invasion is the same thing. The Inner Sphere is like, okay, we need everybody and every mech we could possibly get. Name your price. Here, go.
Yeah.
So please save the Inner Sphere. So if they had been, if Wayne Waco had led the company logically and not gotten so emotionally invested in this blood oath, I mean, I think they could have been one of the larger and better known mercenary units. But this is at the end of it all, it's a lesson about keeping your emotions in check.
Yeah, definitely. Which hey. The people in Battletech are human too, right? That's part of why we love this universe, is that they're human. Yeah. We can relate to them. We can see where they make mistakes. Unless you're Alaric, Ward, and the L clan, but
or unless you're Phelan Kell. Failing upwards, more like get it?
He did. He failed, but he failed upwards at least. Alaric just hasn't failed yet, so.
Failing upwards, man.
Failing upwards. Badumching. Perfect. Yes, so it's funny. It's I had this quote that I have to share in talking about this with the other people, with some of my other fellow podcasters, which you can find in the Valhalla Club podcast Discord. But I was talking with them last night as we were playing some MechWarrior Online, and Brent from Of Mechs and Men, which is a fantastic book club. They're going through the fiction right now. It's amazing. He said, I said, have you heard about, well, I kind of started it and was like, have you heard about the tragedy of Darth, Wayne Waco, the Wise?
The Wise.
And he goes, oh, yes, the tragedy of Wayne Waco and the Waco Rangers. It's not a story you'd hear from a Dragoon.
Not from a Dragoon.
Because the Dragoons didn't care. But yes, Brent, I told you I'd shout you out there. Good job. I love that. It's fantastic. But hey, that kind of wraps up our summary. But let's talk about, dream about what a Waco Rangers force pack would be. Because it's all about the mechs, really. Really, at the end of the day. We love the mechs. We love the plastic minis. And so what are the ones? Now, the format for... Yeah, all the mechs. The format for the force packs is thus a repose mech that's already out, a variant of a mech that's already out, a jumping mech, and then a new model. So, I'm going to let you go first. What are 4 mechs that you think fit this bill?
So, I've got my pack laid out, and one thing we didn't really talk about was the the Waco Rangers tactics. These guys were known, especially in the Combine later on, for hit and run. These guys are very much blitzkrieg lightning warriors. They go in, they hit their objective, whether it be raiding a factory or a convoy, grab what they can and fade into the darkness. And this is the Waco Rangers kind of um, um, preferred tactic. This is what they're known for.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted all mechs that were relatively quick. I think the slowest one is 84 kph. But I've got the for the repos. I've got an OSR-2 Charlie Ostrak. Now we don't have an. It's a repos, and you guys are like, oh, we don't have one of those yet. Well, yeah, we almost do. We got one of the Mercenaries coming.
Yeah,
Almost.
that's right.
So that would be my repos. My variant would be a -2 Phoenix Hawk. Because all we got right now is the -1. I would really like the -3 Mike, which is the Paul Masters with the SRMs. But that would be a Knights of the Inner Sphere pack.
Well, we are getting a variant in one of the new Star League packs coming out, and it actually has the 2 large lasers. It has one on the shoulder and one on the arm.
Cool.
So that's going to be really awesome. That was announced in all of the stuff that just happened recently at PAX Unplugged, which
Gotcha.
I think I may record a little snippet about all the big news going into 2024. But yeah, in one of those Star League packs, because there's going to be 3 Star League Force packs, there's going to be a variant Phoenix Hawk, which, they're great all around mechs. Very easy to maintain.
Yeah, they're good light mech killers too.
Absolutely.
So my jumping mech, I've got the Dash Hotel Firestarter, the FS9 Dash Hotel, and the new mech. Because the Firestarter is anybody who plays Mech Warrior 5, you'll know how good those things are at just tearing down buildings. That's kind of more of a non-homage to the Mech Warrior 5 guys out there.
Nice.
But then finally, we've got the OTL-4 Delta, the Austal. That would be my pick for a new mech. And I think that's the slowest one on here. I think it's like 84, 86 kph. So I want stuff that's got good firepower. Yeah. It's relatively good firepower. That goes fast. Armor is kind of a secondary concern, but damage and speed. And then I saw that some of the new Star League packs are coming out with vehicles. So I thought if they were going to do that, hey, throw us an SL-15, a Slayer. Because the Waco Rangers are one of the units that's known. They've all, throughout their entire history, from the beginning to end, it's always been at least a company with a flight of 4 aerospace fighters.
Yeah, no, I love it.
So they're
more aerospace fighters. More aerospace fighters.
Yeah.
There's we've got a new podcast on the on the Origins feed, where they are looking at aerospace fighters now, and I know that they're already talking about, like, let's update these rules and have some more aerospace fighting going on, which is awesome. I love it.
Give me that Alpha Strike aerospace, man. That's what I want.
That's pretty much, I think, what they're going for at this point. So
that's awesome.
So my thoughts on this Lance, I wasn't quite going the fast moving blitzkrieg. I was kind of thinking of iconic mechs, and so I didn't have the exact models for variants and stuff, but I thought this could work for. So I was thinking like a repose and variant, okay. But the 4 mechs I was thinking of were the Battlemaster, because Wayne Waco, and also because we don't have the Battlemaster outside of a game of Armored Combat.
That's very true. That would definitely help if people wanted to get a second Battlemaster.
Being able to get Battlemasters, they don't have to spend for the whole box. So I liked that. Right. Having it as a repose or a variant kind of could go either way.
Idea. Yeah, it's
kind of could go either way. But then also too, I do like the
excuse me.
I do like the Phoenix Hawk. That they're just a classic for sure. But I also liked, there's some, they have them in the Waco Rangers, and then also the fact that Wayne Waco started with it. I kind of like the Vindicator
Yeah,
as something, and again, as
this
an
is the only place you can get.
option,
It's in
the only place you can
beginner's
get is in the
box.
beginner's box, the new beginner's
Yeah,
box. I
yeah.
thought that would be a great place to have it as well, and the Vindicator. Um, you could have that as the jumping mech.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Good call.
I liked that for the jumping mech too. So,
Yeah.
um, past that, again, I kind of don't have a big, um, preference. I mean, you could throw a locust in there for his son. You know,
Or that could be the fifth option. Have a broken locust and
a
use it as a
broken
salvage token.
locust. Well, that would
Yeah,
be in
it's
the
like
next wolf. That should be in the next Wolf Dragoons box. Is that there's a broken locust under a stalker. Because right now in the Highlanders, there's a Highlander that with a broken urban mech underneath it. So
urban mech. Yeah, yeah.
I think that
That'd be
would,
good.
I think that would be good for sure. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So, but yeah, I also thought of, um, the transgressor, uh, the transgressor, starfighter,
Okay, I'm
because
familiar with that one.
their command lance of starfighters were some transgressors. They were heavy aerospace fighters. Um,
Got it.
they're
Looking at it now.
they're very kind of old school looking. Um, but I mean, they had
Yeah.
some really awesome variants, and I mean, they rocked some
Oh yeah.
pretty hard weapons. So the
I'm
main
looking at this
one,
right now, man. The
3 large
TR-14.
lasers and 4 mediums. The 14 had an
Yeah,
AC-20.
as an AC-20.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. Exactly. That's what I was looking at. And the 15's got your ER mediums, the ER larges, and it's got
yeah,
wing mounted. Good lord, wing mounted heavy PPCs.
yeah.
Oh, this is 3071. Okay, this makes more sense. It's the
Well, yeah,
3071
yeah, that
mech.
model is after, but
Yeah,
still, I
yeah,
thought the transgressor would be a cool inclusion for the starfighter because
yeah.
I agree. I
I
do like the
agree.
idea of having an included vehicle or something. But it could even be the new model, even if it was like three
Yeah,
mechs and the transgressor. I'd be cool with that too. So,
because right now
um,
we've got Shallones, and eventually we're going to have the Visigoths.
yeah, which is
Um,
the Omni Fighter. So,
Omni Fighter, right, right. But unless you want to go oops all Shallones with your Inner Sphere forces, really it only makes sense to be flying Shallones if you're a Drac or a
and
Razzlehog.
those are just the plastic fighters. We do have them in the metals from
Oh,
Ironwind
metals, yeah,
Metals.
Ironwind,
So,
yeah, yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting about Ironwind. Yeah, that
yeah.
is true.
Uh,
Plastic,
yeah, I agree. The new plastics are fantastic. So, but
they're really good.
that was kind of just my take on some of the unique things we could have in it. But I like it a lot. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that kind of brings us to a close. I think real quick because we hadn't really talked about them. Again, the only official artwork from anyone for the Waco Rangers was in the Mercenary Handbook. And so if you're watching the presentation, sorry I didn't get to it earlier, but we've got these fantastic uniforms for the Waco Rangers.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah,
We've got and again, this is where we get the Western / Australian outback,
yeah,
African safari, British African safari motif going
yeah,
on. Tans and browns, but yeah, it's awesome because there's like an aerospace fighter, a mech warrior, a ground trooper, and the ground troopers all have that hat, which is fantastic. And then
yeah.
a tanker.
That yeah. So on the far left, or I guess that's the mech warrior. I will say,
The
man,
furthest
the
left
Lake
is
of the
actually the
Summer,
aerospace. So it's aerospace, then mech
aerospace.
warrior,
Okay,
hmm
okay, got it, got it.
then
Yeah, that
trooper,
star's
and
not
then
doing
the
him
far
any
right is
favors.
the tanker. So
This aerospace pilot looks like he works at a gas station, straight up.
he
He's got his
does, like he's some sort of trucker. Maybe
yeah,
he's delivering gas
yeah. He's
to
got
the
the
gas
hat.
station.
Yeah, but they're not bad uniforms. Not
They're really
definitely not
not.
as ridiculous as some of the Capellan or some of the Combine uniforms I've seen.
Absolutely. And then they also had an Aztec or a tech, and they also had a field medic there who, again, looks like she is on African safari. So
Yeah.
she's got that kind of like domed hat with the western brim.
Yeah, it's almost like a pith helmet with like a fedora brim. It's crazy. I like it a lot. I like those uniforms. The ground troop uniforms I think are phenomenal.
Yeah, those are just funny.
They don't make a lot of sense, but they're very stylish. I like them.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, there's a lot of planets out there that probably have the kind of, they require, sun protection. So.
Oh, sure. That's just like a lot of folds and sand could get into the.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Woody, thanks for joining me for this episode of Mercenary Star Podcast. Thanks for talking about Waco Rangers because, like I said, it's a tragic story. They're not well loved, but they're we love to hate them, right?
Remember, kids, don't hold on to grudges. Don't kill your kids.
On to grudges.
Kill you eventually.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like I said, there's no force pack for Waco Rangers, but if you're looking for Battletech products, be sure to check out our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. You can click the links in the show notes. It's fortressminiaturesandgames.com. Also, too, don't forget to support your local friendly game store if you have one. But Fortress is fantastic. They get things out quickly, and they just had their big Southern Assault tournament recently that they host. So congrats to them and all those involved. But yeah, any shout outs for you?
Obviously shouts out to all the guys at the Valhalla Club. If you're watching this and don't know what we're talking about, Valhalla Club's a podcast, but it's also a community on Discord. A lot of the cool podcasts hang out there. There's the OMAM, the Mexican guys, the Valhalla Club guys. Obviously, White Fox is over there, but it's a cool place where we can talk. And there's game nights that we have. There's actually one going on right now, which you guys are playing. So
there is.
Shouts out. Yeah. Shouts out to them for sure. And shouts out to Gear Gaming. That's my local game store. So shouts out. I doubt they'll ever see this, but it's a great place. And
awesome.
Like going there. Yeah. Shouts out.
Fantastic. It's good to have a local place. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Woody, and appreciate your time. Hope that you start to feel better soon. As I'm sure.
Sorry for everyone listening about the. I'm sure I'm sniffling and coughing nonstop, but we had to get this out.
You hit it well. It's all good. So
thanks.
Thanks again, and for all those listening. Again, if you have not, give us a follow on YouTube, or give us a subscribe on YouTube. Also, sorry, I forgot to mention, we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you all very much. That's a big milestone for us because it means we can start to do more stuff. Also, keep watching so we can hit our next milestones. But I'm excited for 2024. We've got some awesome things coming, and that's all going to be revealed in the coming weeks. But thank you. Hope that you all have a fantastic and safe New Year's Eve and New Year's. Hope that you had a wonderful Christmas. And look forward to chatting some more Battletech next time. So have a good one, and we'll see you next time.